time for today's face-off on Fox Soul. Challengers Quan LX and Big Angry Adams ready to go blow by blow on those hot topics. Face-off on Fox Soul starts right now.
Socialist is now New York City's first Muslim mayor. In his victory speech last night, he promised to fight President Trump.
Hear me, President Trump, when I say this. To get to any of us, you will have to get through all of us.
Mamdani ran on a platform of making the city more affordable, promising to bring down rent and childcare costs. At 34 years old, he will be the youngest to lead the city in more than a century. Mamdani beat Republican Guardian Angels founders Curtis Sliwa and former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, who ran as...
In this round, here's Quan LX.
Charles, we just watched a video clip of the new mayor-elect, Mayor Mamdani, a beautiful, gifted young man that has sparked serious interest and generated a movement in the city of New York like never seen before. He's the first Muslim to ever lead the city of New York in the seat of the mayor. And you would be surprised at the ages of young people who went out to vote in New York like no other primary before. This man has generated a groundswell of excitement, enthusiasm, and people who want to see significant change. And who's angry? The oligarchs, the elitists who've been running unchecked and getting rich off the backs of the poor in the city of New York for generations. And now this young man, God chose a young Muslim man to be the voice now, the catalyst to bring forth change that is significant for all New Yorkers. Though they want to call Mr. Mamdani a socialist, he's not that. He's just a young man that believes in freedom, justice, equality, and opportunity for all New Yorkers. And he wants to make sure that the wealth is not controlled by 5% of the population in New York, while 95% of the people are working to help the rich get richer. I'm proud of that young man. I'm very excited for him. And for those who want to call him anti-Semitic, you might want to go check out how many young Jewish men and women went out to the polls and voted for him under the age of 35. A large number of them, because they're not buying the lies of anti-Semitism that's being put on him to frighten voters away from him, to scare New Yorkers, and to use him as the boogeyman of the Democratic Party. The Quran says, Brother Mamdani, and to your family, the wickedly wise plan, but Allah God also plans, and he's the best of all planners. And look at God's plan. He's now the mayor-elect in spite of all of those attempts to trap him, set him up, and destroy him, and assassinate his character and his name. It did not work. New York is facing a new day, and that's what young people in New York want to see, and all people, to be honest with you, because he really won. He really won in a landslide. Wasn't even close.
Well, I mean, you called it a primary. It's a general election. You said he's not a socialist. He is been a member of the Democratic Socialist Organization there in New York. He is proudly a socialist. So, I mean, those two things completely off base. You say that he's not anti-Semitic. That has been his campaign pitch, right? It has been, you know, I'm going to be inclusive. He also won the election and then immediately went to the Caribbean and gave a speech at a mosque where the imam has openly celebrated the murders of October 7th. You know, he has embraced a lifelong, at least adult lifelong position on anti-Semitism. We don't have to, you know, his rap song from 7 or 8 years ago about the Holy Land Five, the terrorist funders. You know, if you look at his father's rhetoric and his scholarship, like his support for the idea of suicide bombings, which he wrote during the Second Intifada, and his positions and his refusal to renounce Hamas and globalizing the Intifada and just violence in general directed at Jews, and of course the overwhelming tide of anti-Semitism that has crashed over New York. Some progressive rabbis have met with him. One came away absolutely horrified. I think we're going to expect policies that are very much anti-Jew, but you know, he was elected. And the question is why he was elected. You talked about people trying traps. In fact, quite the opposite, right? The media protected him, as they do with their love for socialism. But really, I think this falls on the Democrats. Governor Hochul has already said she's not going to fund the free bus plan or the rent freezes or any of his big picture, big tent socialist ideas that he was pitching to win and led him to victory, right? But the only other option the Democrats really gave people was Andrew Cuomo, an establishment guy, either a sex pest or a sex pervert, but it was very someone that is off-putting.
No, Trump was not on the ballot.
Hold on.
Trump was not on the ballot.
Let's not interrupt, but off-putting to female
You said
voters.
sex pervert.
But here's the thing. I mean, everyone agrees with this about Cuomo. I mean, everyone loved him until they hated him. But the real thing is here, when you look at the breakdown of voters, it was natural-born U.S. citizens of all races supported Cuomo being elected. Foreign-born voters overwhelmingly supported Zohran. And then, of course, you had young female liberal voters. You talked about the Jewish vote. I think it was more the youth vote. And that was all predicated on this reality that New York works for the wealthy, and it does not work for the poor. The illiberalism that Zohran preaches, and you were just flat lying a minute ago. I mean, look, we had Eric Adams, a decades-long police reformist who appears to be involved in some corruption, but someone that I absolutely supported his campaign and had high hopes for. Before him, you had de Blasio for 2 elections, 8 years, incredibly also socialist, incredibly liberal, who did all kinds of radical policies there in New York that actually cost small business people the most. So this thing that this is this new movement is not true at all, right? This is an anti-Semite.
It's a new movement.
This is a man that cosplays the struggle, right? He's incredibly smug. He seems very bright. I mean, he knows the lies to tell. He's a brilliant politician, but he is driven by hatred, much like he was born in it. He has lived a life of incredible wealth and shelter. He grew up in one of, if not the most expensive
You mean
private
Donald
school
Trump
in
you're speaking of?
Look, I criticize Trump all the time. You want to bring him up, let's talk about Trump in a section. I've got plenty of criticism for him. But right now we're talking about the stain that is Zohran. This is a guy that went to one of the most expensive. In fact, I think there are huge parallels between Zohran and Donald that nobody wants to talk about.
But it's all right when the white man go to the final schools. It's all right when the white man comes from wealth and use that wealth to better himself and strengthen himself and move himself forward in life. But when this man is a Muslim who's doing it of foreign parents, you want to bring that up. Oh, it was foreigners who voted for him. Baby. Look at what happened in New York. A lot of young whites, a lot of young blacks, a lot of young Latinos, and young people, period, voted for this man. And you call him anti-Semite? You call him anti-Semite? So all them young Jewish people, so all them young Jewish children and young Jewish adults that voted for him, they believe he's anti-Semitic? He's anti-Zionist. He's not anti-Semitic. He's anti-Zionist. And Zionism and Judaism is not the same thing.
I love it when you're scared about what I want to say because you start shouting like an imbecile and interrupting
you just want to lie on this man.
No, I'm not lying anything. Everything I say is going to be backed up. But the thing is, you don't want to hear the finish of my point. And the point is, he grew up with abject wealth, right? He pretends that he's not. He was living in rent control for the last few years. He's never had a real job. In fact, there's evidence to suggest that he lied about his resume, claiming he worked in Houston for a nonprofit instead of working in Austin for a nonprofit that actually got closed down. And this is a man that has never done anything but suck on his parents' wealth while pretending to be part of the struggle. And that's the grand lie.
You sound like you're talking about John F. Kennedy.
And he knows.
Is that the Kennedy family you're talking about?
History
the Trump family? You mean George Herbert Walker Bush second?
I don't think
See, all the rich elitist white folks are all right with you. The Bush family, the Kennedy family, the Trump family. You ain't got no problem with that. But the minute this young Arab man, now in America, an American citizen, raised in America, and loves this country, wants to change it, you got a problem with it.
First of all, he was foreign born. He was welcomed into this country as refugees. He has this kind of false story. They're very wealthy. He came from Uganda in abject wealth. He has this false background that he likes to preach, but he was welcomed to this country. His father is a tenured professor at Columbia. His mother's a famous filmmaker, and yet what he does is he spews hatred for America. And people, the gullible, the unhappy, and there are plenty of unhappy people, especially you talk about young people that got incredibly expensive, worthless degrees that their parents paid for, that are living in New York City on their parents' dime, they can't get ahead, right? Because you can't. Because no one's told him, hey, you've got to have a real skill. You've got to have a real thing.
The
You've
common working man and woman of America can't get ahead.
He
The
is
American
playing.
farmer can't get ahead.
Okay,
Common people are not getting ahead in America.
Let's talk about his policies, right? I mean, you own a bunch of stuff. He wants to make evictions even harder when people don't pay. He wants rent freezes, right? That would horrify you, but you're not going to tell the listeners that.
No, I would
right?
disagree with that. Because some of these slumlords are charging too much money for properties that they should not be being paid for. In fact, they shouldn't be allowed to have HUD housing income coming from these slumlords.
He wants to open up businesses, state-run businesses that are competing with the bodegas. And he said, oh, yeah, but
what's wrong with that?
We're not going to sell lotto tickets, alcohol, or tobacco. I wonder what religion that reconciles with.
That's called exploitation of the poor.
Okay, no,
lotto, tobacco, alcohol, that's exploiting the poor.
Well, then why is he not going to regulate that? But it's the most frightening of his ideas, right, is this citizen-led law enforcement. This is the man that said violence is a construct. You know how you have the privilege, the wealth privilege, to say violence is a construct in a city that is just replete with victim crime? It's when you don't have to touch it. And when you've spent your life riding around in a black car, in an Uber, when you're not down in these streets. You know, he took a Photoshop where he's eating with his hands on a subway. He's not a subway guy.
That's an Arab tradition.
Okay, no.
That's a cultural
but not
practice.
on a subway, because he doesn't ride the subway.
Everybody eats on the subway.
Because he's rich.
Even rich folks ride the subway. You have some rich people. You do have some rich folks who ride New York subways.
Okay. Anyhow, this is not one that does. This is the guy why he says, oh, domestic violence, we're going to send a social worker out instead. It's insane. This is a guy that's just not
He didn't say that, Charles.
Yes, he did.
So the cops won't come just a social worker.
No.
He'll send both.
He wants a
because
social
often
worker
in domestic violence cases, and you're a former cop, and you're a former cop, often in domestic violence cases, the cop has to be the social worker, the therapist, and the cop. So I see nothing wrong with sending a social worker and a cop at the same time, so the social worker can convince that woman to get the hell out of an abusive relationship, and there's a female there to communicate with that woman and sympathize with her, while the cop deal with the male perpetrator who's been assaulting her. Ain't nothing wrong with that.
We actually have a plan like that here in Houston, but that's not what he's talking about. That's why you're yelling and screaming, because you're not interested
because you're just against because he's Muslim.
No, I'm against
you
him.
hate it because he's Muslim,
I don't hate him.
That's why you hate him. But Allah blessed him to become mayor. Young people are not buying the old man lies. Old white men ain't getting them lies. They don't want them with Charles.
Is this the start of the caliphate?
Charles.
Right? Do we need to read the
Nobody's
hadith
buying
about how they
the
got
old
to kill
white
all the
man's
Jews
lies
to start the caliphate?
The old white man lies ain't working no more, Charles.
Do you think it's true? Right? Let's talk about y'all's religion, right?
Oh, now you want to bring up y'all's religion.
Well, I mean, it's your shared religion. You're all happy, but you're saying Allah put him in power.
There's no God but Allah.
So do you think?
And I believe that Muhammad is his messenger.
Do you think that people that don't, because this is my only problem with the Muslims that believe that they should force their religion on other people. With
That's
Zohran,
not Islam.
Absolute. Oh no, the word.
That's not taught in the Holy Quran.
Okay, Islam means submission.
That's taught by some crazy scholars,
I know you,
but not in the Holy Quran. And all Muslims don't follow scholarship. They follow the Quran. All Muslims are duty bound to follow the Quran, not some scholars. Because we reject many of the scholars, but we accept totally the Holy Quran, and that's not in the Quran.
Okay. So this is your thing. Now, the millions of people that believe that proselytizing by the sword, globalizing the violent intifada, killing the non-believers, we're seeing.
You mean the mega Trump supporters?
Hold on, we're seeing.
They say the same thing.
No, they don't at all.
Oh, yes, they do.
There are no.
We can bring some videos with Trump supporters
absolutely
on podcasts calling themselves pastors and Christians, talking about not even black folks should be allowed to remain in America and practice Christianity, who believe in segregation. And these are pastors who are mega supporters. We'll bring the videos.
You are literally making stuff up.
Oh, we'll bring the videos, ladies and gentlemen. Go to TikTok.
There are millions. Go to TikTok. There are millions of people that subscribe to the notion that the caliphate won't happen until all the Jews are killed.
That's madness.
I mean, let's
the Quran don't teach that.
See, that's your thing. You always say, "Oh, that's not real."
Doesn't teach
that's
that.
Not real. Let's ignore the millions.
The Quran doesn't teach that.
You want to talk about TikTok?
The same way you had slavery in the name of Christianity, when the Bible did not condone slavery in America. The Bible did not condone slavery, but you had white Christians trying to teach that the Bible permitted slavery, which was a lie.
But the Quran does permit slavery.
Oh no, it does not.
It does. permits the rape of women who are
Muhammad said
non-believers.
free the slaves.
Okay,
He said free all the
okay,
slaves.
again,
that
you're
human
lying.
bondage is against
You're lying.
Islam.
Okay, well, where is open slavery still in existence, right, in the world now? It's all Islamic cultures and
Sudan,
cultures in
for
China.
sure.
Right, in Sudan. I saw a
Some
video
parts
today.
of Nigeria,
I
for
saw-
sure.
I saw a video
Libya
Sudan.
and America.
I saw a video from the Sudan
And America.
of a young black. It does not in America.
Oh,
You're
yeah.
lying.
The prison industrial complex is
those are
modern day
people in
slavery
prison.
in America.
Okay, but
and the
so-
13th Amendment says you lose your
Okay,
right as a
so-
free human
so,
being, and you
okay,
can be a
the
slave
fact that
in
you're
prison in
comparing
America. So it exists
prisoners,
right in America
your
too.
violent prisoners to slaves in the Sudan. Like there was a video floating around today of an African American child, which you don't care about, right? Because he's a Christian being executed for having the wrong faith, for not by
And
by
that's
Muslims.
wrong as hell.
Okay,
That's evil. That's
but that
wickedness.
is Islam.
Because it was
That's
a Christian
Islam,
king
okay?
who saved the life of
And
Muhammad.
the
When
huge
Muhammad was
difference-
being persecuted and
Okay.
about to be murdered, it was a Christian king that protected him and spared his
and
life.
here's the
So
thing.
how in the hell we going to kill
So
Christians
what
like
we're
that?
saying, well, I don't know.
We wouldn't even
It's-
have the
it's-
prophet of
well,
Islam
I don't know
that
how
we
you're
had
doing it,
if it was not
but
for a
it's
Christian
happening
king.
all over the world. Over 90% of the religious-based violence is from Islamists.
And that's another lie you tell.
No, it's not a lie
But
at all.
the world
it's
is
very
rejecting
easy.
them
Okay.
old white lies.
Okay, none of
and as
it-
an old white guy, them old white lies ain't working no more,
Well,
Charles.
here's the real lies. You're a rich black man who would never
I'm
support.
not rich.
You're
I'm in the
lying.
working class.
You would never support
I'm not
any of
rich.
Zohran's
I'm in the working
policies.
class.
You would be furious if socialism was taking place.
No,
in
I would not
Houston,
be.
but
I
you're
believe in
applauding
socialized health care.
Zohran.
I believe in socialized
We're
health
not
care.
talking about that.
And I
We're
believe
talking about
in
you
free
as
education.
a landlord.
I believe
So
in
do
free
I. We're
education
talking about
too.
you as a landlord not being able to evict people that aren't paying. And that's
I don't
why he
really
got
believe
elected.
in that, and
He
I don't
got
participate in
elected.
that.
He got elected because
But
people
some
are
of these
unhappy.
HUD
The people are
slumlords
unhappy.
should not be allowed to get HUD
People are
payments.
unhappy
But they're
because they've
slumlords.
been listening to left-wing lies for decades about getting stupid degrees and not learning real careers, and the government will take care of you. And the truth is,
But that's the
the
truth,
government's
Charles.
not
A
taking
lot of these
care
degrees these
anybody.
kids are going in debt for are worthless.
Defensive end Marshawn Kneeland had died at the age of 24.
We are now getting new information on his death from authorities who are reporting that the NFL player's death happened after a police chase. Texas DPS says officials attempted to stop a vehicle for a traffic violation late last night on the Dallas North Tollway near Keller Springs Boulevard. Texas DPS says the driver refused to stop and sped away. Troopers then lost sight of that vehicle, but it was found later on abandoned after the crash. Frisco police and K-9 units responded and assisted DPS troopers looking for that subject. DPS says the subject was found in the area around 1:30 this morning with a self-inflicted gunshot wound. We now know that subject was Marshawn Kneeland. This is a developing story.
In this round, here's Charles Big Angry Adams.
This is a horrible story from right here in Texas last week. Quanell, I know you're a Cowboys fan.
I am.
You have your son is playing at a big program, college football, and will likely go pro. One of the best high school players in the state a couple of years ago. This is heartbreaking, and that he had expressed some suicidal ideations to people close to him who were worried about him and had sought to get him help. It's very difficult in Texas to get people help. I would say real quick, you can call 988 or 1-800-273-TALK, which are suicide hotlines. But this is, the pressure in sports, just like is probably, especially at the professional level, the pressure to succeed, to achieve. He had a great recovery of a blocked punt earlier this season, but they're immense. And the pressure to achieve on the youth, the young adults, it's unbelievable. And I would just say, one, it's a tragedy, and that everyone should both check on their loved ones, and if anyone's expressing a suicidal ideation, to take it seriously. And I'm not necessarily saying involving the police or involving the government, but take them to a hospital and encourage them to get help.
But Charles, he had a great game the day before.
Yeah.
He had a significant impact. It was the best game of his NFL career a day or two before. Serious impact. What happened between that and 24 to 48 hours that caused him to reach such a level of mental and psychological depravity to where he hated life, to where he no longer wanted to live? it also makes me wonder how much, and I'm an avid religious Cowboy fan, but how much did the Dallas medical personnel know, and were they truly aware of his mental health condition? And was there somebody on the team that the family could reach out to if he started expressing or showing telltale signs of psychological relapse to suicidal thoughts? There was a breakdown, Charles, somewhere, because you would think that he was texting family saying goodbye, knowing he was having suicidal thoughts. So at what point did this happen, Charles? At what point did they first started hearing this? And I have another question for you. Give me your opinion. If a player is showing suicidal thoughts, it's like medical school. If you're in medical school and you start having suicidal thoughts and get put on medication, can you still get a medical license and practice medicine? Should a player who's demonstrated these suicidal thoughts before and a high risk of CTE in the game coming all the way from Pee Wee football on up, should he really be allowed to continue playing a game where head trauma is real, concussions are real? Are we doing enough as fans to demand that the NFL and college football and high school football do more to protect the crown? Not the helmet you wear, but the crown of the head of these athletes. I've had those same concerns and same fears for my son from Pee Wee football. I would watch him so closely to see if he was showing these signs. My oldest son played college football. He's now practicing law in this city. But he played college football too. But he had one concussion and it was in high school from playing rugby. Charles, this is a frightening thing here. I believe enough is not being done to really dig deep into these, these issues like this.
That is very true,
man.
but you know, the fans, they want the hard hits. They don't want, the players don't want to wear the big goofy helmets. I mean, we need to start educating people on the dangers. And I'll tell you, the younger generation, flag football's taken off, but this was an all-around tragedy. But if you're feeling something like this, talk to people and get some help.
Please.